started. We are, of course, going over chapters 7 and 8 for Never Split the Difference, create the illusion of control and guarantee execution. All right, Mr. Steve, our fearless leader of Don't Split or Never Split the Difference, take it away.
All right, so create the illusion of control. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where it gets serious as far as like, if you can master this, which I think we're all going to be working on for the rest of our careers. But if we can master this is the game changer. Because it gets us from in negotiating in the normal situation. If we're negotiating, if I've got a hostage situation and somebody says, Steve, you got to save the hostages, that's a me problem. And I'm using my energy, my mental power, whatever, to solve that problem. But if we can create a situation where they're using their mental power to solve the problem, and they think that they're solving the problem, and they think that they're in control and all of that, when we're creating the illusion of control for them, they're just doing everything we want them to do. And they're solving the problem that they wanted us to solve.
Right. That is like so flippin' powerful. I'm never negotiating again. I will just let people negotiate with themselves from here on out. Can you get your seller to sign this right now? How would you like me to do that? We've given the entire market 3 more days before we've decided to call for highest and best. How would you like me to do that?
How am I supposed to do that?
How am I supposed to do that?
So after reading this, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump back into y'all, but reading this and getting into this, now when you go back to the very beginning of the book, the very first story that he talks about, where he talks about, sitting in the room with the people and they're saying, we have your kid, Voss, or give us $1 million, he's going to die. And all I did is say, how am I supposed to get that kind of money? How am I supposed to know he's okay? And he just did that for 3 minutes. And the 2 people just threw their hands up because they couldn't figure it out. Excuse me 1 second. I got to let the dog in. Come on. Come on, you two, let's go.
I love how dogs are such a big part of all of our lives.
Right. You love that? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll love that.
Yes, you love it too, Steve.
Yeah, look at my face. All right. Anyway, there you go.
I've only got 1. I should have 2.
Osco, say hi.
Yes.
No. And I got Sweepy over there too. Get kicked to the office. All right, so talk to me. Has anybody started kind of, now that we've re-seen this or we've seen it for the first time, has anybody started working with this as far as changing their questions or changing how, instead of answering the question, kind of give a question back, trying how am I supposed to do that kind of stuff? Has anybody played around with that a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, we've heard that for years, being ex-KW agents, right? Always answer a question with a question. You might answer them, but follow it up with a question. Always follow it up with a question. Follow it up with a question. My family's hating me right now because I'm are you really going to bed? Yes, Mom, I'm going to bed. Good night. Okay. Are you sure you're tired? I'm ruthless right now just because I want to get in the habit. I truly believe that every time I get to a successful closing, when I look back on it, especially if that buyer, that seller closed before they wanted to, or moved faster than they wanted to, or did something different from the beginning, when you look back and really evaluate those situations and those circumstances, I got there because I asked enough questions, right? And I think when you get to that successful contract or that successful solution, it's because you finally have hit enough questions to have all the data you need to have the upper hand. I've got a client closing next month, right, and I'm using this story with a lot of the agents that I coach right now because the buyer was like, look, we don't have to move till June. We have a $7,000 lease or $7,000 bill if we break our lease, and we're not in a hurry. We just moved to Atlanta. We just moved, we were just not in a hurry. So our plan was to get started hardcore in the spring. Well, when she told me, hey, my pain point is that $7,000 bill, my next question to her was, well, what if the seller pays the $7,000 bill, right? And she was like, oh, if you can make that happen, I'm all in. So then we made it happen. We got them under contract. They went under contract while I was out of town. Then they had buyer's remorse. My next question to them was, well, why do we have buyer's remorse? Well, we don't want to move by December. We don't want to move till January because we don't want to move over the holidays. Well, would this contract feel better if I got you a month covered in your lease? That way you could turn your notice in 60 days later. And the answer was yes. Now, I didn't know if I was going to get the $3,500 because we were signed, sealed, and earnest money was delivered. But we went back to the seller. The seller was a builder. He had talked to the buyer. He knew how upset she was. And just asking the question and making it a win-win for everybody. Hey, listen, let's get these guys to the closing table where everybody's happy. I mean, asking the agent, do y'all really want to, I know they'll sue you. You'll probably win, but I know they'll sue you. Do you really want to go through a court battle? Because that's going to cost you more than $3,500. Or is there any way we can get that $3,500 out of the builder and make everybody ecstatic and happy? And the builder begrudgingly signed it, but it was because I didn't go in demanding. I went in asking both to my buyer, how can I make the situation better? Right. And then to the agent, here's how you can make the situation better. And it was a beautiful situation. My guys walked away with $30,000 from the builder.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was all because of this tactic. Lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. What's your pain point? How do I solve it?
Well, it's just like he says in the book, like the person's leaving the hospital, right? The person's sick, they're leaving the hospital, they pull the IVs out and they're leaving the hospital. Instead of saying, why are you leaving the hospital? Like, why is pointed. And that's another thing about this. Yeah, it has to be how and what questions. Why is very pointed. And we know that, but I fall into why all the time. And it sucks. And I catch myself and I'm like, damn it, don't say why. But instead of saying, why are you leaving? The doctor says, what are you hoping to accomplish by leaving before you're supposed to, or something like that. And then it gives, not only is it not accusatory or whatever, but it puts the ball 100% in their court to where it's like, now I have to use mental energy to solve the problem, Well,
a why question can be answered with because. A who and what question can't. Like the who and what, like, why are you leaving? Why is this so important? Because works. What are you trying to accomplish? Because doesn't work.
Right.
Right. And I think about when he talked about that, I thought about being a parent when your kid's like, well, why? Well, why? So I don't effing punch you in the throat is why. Stop asking me that question.
Right.
And it brought me to a realization that that's probably how the opposite side feels when you start asking why, just like you do when your kid's like, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? How about I punch you in the throat and just go away? No more needs for why.
Honestly, kind of piggybacking off of that, for me, I would say one thing I've been most aware of now is like, so one, getting into a habit of, like you guys said, kind of follow up with the question. I always answer questions. I'm just used to answering questions, but now I'm getting into the habit of asking that follow-up question with it. But I think what I'm most aware of now is kind of like what you guys are talking about, how questions, what questions, why questions. Honestly, I've just kind of been experimenting with them. It's like, oh, I've never talked to this person. Let's try why. Oh, I've never talked to this person. Let's try how. Let's try what. And kind of finding out what those responses are. So I guess now I'm kind of just in that testing phase.
There you go. What makes this even more complex is that it's like the why, like for us in real estate, the why is like paramount. Like in this market, like who's selling their house right now? The market's like crazy right now. It's like there's nobody buying a house right now. So we have to know why, but we can't ask them. We have to ask them, how do you hope to whatever? Or, what are you hoping to accomplish by selling before Christmas? Or
mm-hmm. Well, I think when you start asking the how and what questions, it gets you to their pain point. It makes them focus. And anytime you're negotiating, the pain point is is the breaking point for the person that's trying to win. What is that pain point that you're trying to get to? A couple chapters ago, they were talking about one of the captives wanting a whole bunch of money, but really it was just for the weekend partying. Well, what are you doing with this money, right? Once they knew what they were doing with this money, then they were able to put a more realistic price point that would accomplish both things, safely getting the hostage out and making the kidnapper go away.
So I'll give you a perfect example of this, and it happened this morning. I've got somebody I'm working with who they're trying to go out of state, and because they're retired, they're going out of state, grandkids are out of state, and they want to be out near the grandkids and whatever. It's colder weather climates out in Colorado. And I do really want to move, but want to move, but really want to move. And it's like they're really dragging their feet. Found out today, because I started asking questions, because it sounded like they were dragging their feet, but they didn't know if they were dragging their feet. So I started asking some questions, trying to uncover what's going on. And finally she said, look, between you and me, my son's getting divorced and they're breaking up, and we got to get out there with the kids. And that's really what's driving all this. And it's like, we've been talking for a month, and shame on me for not digging more and whatever. I just thought they wanted to be near their kids, but they don't want to be near their kids. Like, they kind of need to be near the kids. And so then once that happened, then all of a sudden all the issues that they had as far as like, should we do this, should we do that? All of a sudden I started to come up with, if we could do this, would that work out? Or if we, what I mean? And so once you get to that why, but again, it didn't come from saying that. So why are you really moving? It came from, if you don't make it out there, affect things or whatever, it was that extra digging that now I think that instead of them maybe waiting till spring, I think I could work it out to where we can get them listed pretty quick, because I think it'll go quick, Anyway.
Right. Well, with those questions, when you give your counterpoint the illusion of control, they almost give up because they think they won.
Right.
Right. As soon as it's like the rabbit and the hare, right? Go back to your elementary school day stories. As soon as the rabbit thought he had that race won, he went to bed. And, the tortoise swooped in, won the race, and the rabbit was none the wiser. And this is what this kind of makes me feel like happens. Because when you give that illusion of control, when you give those people the reins, well, their objective is to be stronger. They're not, because they're using force and guns and ammunition and words and violence, right? That normally really represents a very weak person internally. However, that illusion of control, the need for that power is filled and is satisfied. Next thing you know, they're rolled over on their back, taking a nap, and you just walk right in and take everything you want.
Yep. Alicia, did you have anything you wanted to add about that chapter? You've been a little quiet. I don't want to call you out.
I don't. I feel like I'm a good listener.
Okay.
I do ask a lot of questions. One of my focus is to stay away from the yes/no questions, and work more on those vague, open-ended questions.
Open-ended questions.
Well, I think in our industry, open-ended questions are the only way to go. I mean, I even do this with my kids when they come home from school. What was your favorite class today? Math. Can you tell me what you learned in math today? No. I mean, they still, but but you can see the gears. They think, and then they just turn into assholes because they're teenagers, and of course give me an asshole response. But even at that age, you can see the gears going before they
thought that was just a man.
No. You can have mine. Yeah, you can borrow mine to see. You can compare. You can do an analysis and
compare and contrast.
Yeah.
and see, but it's crazy to watch the gears in people's brains turn, because as you ask, you can almost see the smoke coming out. people don't talk to people this way. So when they do, it just throws them right off guard and off kilter.
Right.
Agreed. I feel like when my littlest gets in the car, I don't say, "Did you have a good day?" I say, "How was your day today?" And he has to gauge it for himself.
I like that. There you go.
I'm using that today.
On Lexi.
Yeah.
Poor Lexi.
She'll be all right.
So, all right. So let's go chapter 8, guarantee execution. So this is a chapter where he finds the magic bullet from the drug dealer in Pittsburgh, who comes up with the, "Hey dog, how do I know she's okay?" And he has his holy shit moment, as he calls it. I love the guy reading the book. If you're not listening to it on Audible,
You should be.
Like I remember when I first listened to it, I looked to see what else he like read, because like I want to read it or I want to listen to it. You know what I mean? But it's like a lot of like almost like romance novels and stuff. And it's like I know, like I need something. Whatever. Maybe
He has a good late night DJ voice. Wasn't that chapter 1?
That's right.
Yeah.
So Bill laid Beverly down on the beach. No. Anyway, that's another book. So guaranteed execution. So in this one, they also have the story about the prison uprising, and also the question of how are we going to get this done? What does it look like? This is a great post close. One of my other sales classes that I was in before I was in real estate, they talked about there's like a sales pendulum. Like if you're way up here, you're likely to buy. Way down here, you're likely to sell. He said, if a person's at 3 o'clock, or I guess it looked like 3 o'clock. To me, it looks like a mirror, but it's 3 o'clock. Anyway, at 3 o'clock, you are likely to buy, but this is a dangerous place to have somebody because there's no momentum up here. Like you're hanging, and it's easy to just assume, and it goes like you almost would rather it be at 6 o'clock, no momentum, and then you have to push it. But if you're up here, you have to get over the finish line. And like this talks about like, how do we get across the finish line? What does success look like in your world? How do we know that we've implemented everything? I love that, and I think in real estate, we all deal with that. We get somebody who says, the easiest thing for me is a listing appointment. We're going to have a listing appointment. Great. I'm going to come over tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Sound great? Great. Wonderful. And all of a sudden it completely falls apart because I didn't guarantee the execution. All right. So, what would come up that would keep us from meeting tomorrow at 7 o'clock? How are we sure that we're going to meet, stuff like that. We have to post close everything.
Well, we're taught that question in Sales 101, right? What could come up that would eliminate us from being able to meet? Like I've heard that how many times? I can't even tell you. I don't think in my 7.5 years of selling real estate, I've ever asked it.
Right.
I
started asking it last week after listening and reading. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to grow up and actually ask this question. I'm going to pretend like I'm a salesperson.
Well, in a lot of the things that he teaches, because when I coach agents, that's one of the first things that I hear is I don't want to sound like a salesperson. And I feel like everything he teaches in this book actually negates the way a used car salesman talks to you ever. Right? The agents I can't stand to work with are the ones that call and they're like, okay, I just sent you an offer, sign it right now. Why is your client sign it? What's wrong with my offer? Like just super, super, super aggressive. I'm just wondering how many of those agents have called me and said, what would it look like if your client signed this offer? It would get you to the closing table, right? And start asking some of those questions. If my perspective of their aggressiveness, because the aggression is the same, in my opinion. It's the difference in how you ask the question that makes it not feel aggressive and makes it feel aggressive on both hands. And so for me, these closing questions, these questions that make that other side think, it's like magic, in my opinion. It's like, oh my God, they're thinking, they're working through it, they realize their request is not reasonable.
Right.
And it almost feels like it puts the responsibility on their shoulders to justify if they can do what it is you're asking them to do. And they come to that no and that conclusion on their own. And the whole book feels almost like one-sided negotiation, because you make them negotiate with themselves. And this right here, drawing that last minute draw out of time. How do you expect me to accomplish that? Like, how do I know they're alive? How do I know they're safe? How do I know you're going to release them safe? Right? It draws all of that out. And I think it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back of the last little bit of frustration with the side that you're negotiating with. And it's that extra time that makes them think, almost makes me feel like, okay, that's it. They're going to solidify the answer themselves in that moment.
Right. Because at the end of the day, it's their data.
Yes.
And that's another sales thing. It's like people trust their own data.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't tell you that the market sucks. I can't tell you that through our questions, we have to have them see that this is what's going on and this is what needs to be done. Anyway, I'm sorry, David.
Yeah, so this chapter I like because it's, I feel like the whole reason is to kind of get a win-win solution. And this is kind of talking about, okay, well, how do you secure that actual solution is executed? Not just, okay, yeah, we've got everybody to shake hands, everybody agrees. It almost kind of weeds out those counterfeit yeses, because then at this point it's like you've got to guarantee that execution. That's what you led everything up to. Also, this chapter actually kind of reminded me of with project management, kind of making sure you have all the stakeholders involved. Because I think this one kind of talks about, making sure you have all of the players that kind of, have kind of agreed. Like you could be talking. I say this all the time. You talk to one of the spouses, and then you go and talk to then they talk to the other spouse. Then you get a phone call and everything's falling apart. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, what happened here? But, with project management, we kind of know, okay, well, what's your full list of stakeholders? Who all is involved? Have you even talked to them? Are they cool? This chapter actually really just reminded me of all of that. It kind of put almost like a little script or instruction on how to go through it and how to kind of capture everything. But yeah, no, that's all I thought about really the whole chapter, that project management and, closing the deal, making sure it gets executed. The whole reason we got into the negotiation.
Right. Well, something else that I actually really like about this book, and you just kind of made me think about it, Dave. And so when we first get into the industry at KW, they teach you about the DISC profile, right? And they teach you to learn everybody's personality. Are they a D? Are they an I? Are they an S? Are they a C? Right. And if you know me, I'm a high D, high I. Believe it or not, on the test, I think my I shows up higher than my D, but in real life, my D shows up higher than my my I. But if you take my clients that just went under contract, right, the husband is a high I. 100% he's a high I. The wife is a high S. Well, how do you deal with a couple that I'm only dealing with the wife because the husband's always working, but I have to be able to have those conversations with the husband through the wife. And a lot of times, and to your point, David, you find out a lot when you actually get the other decision maker on the phone. I think these tactics all work regardless of the profile.
Right.
I think these tactics will allow a brand new baby negotiator, whether a realtor, a used car, I don't care what you're negotiating businesses, you're an attorney negotiating a contract. I think these tactics take the need to understand the level of the DISC profile that we are encouraged to learn it at KW. I think it takes that need away. I think you should still, don't get me wrong, I think there's value in understanding, okay, is this person going to move because it's pretty, or is this person going to move because the numbers are right? right? Those personalities matter because you have to have more than just questions. You have to have conversations with your clients as well. I just think that these initial questions help you, A, get your person under contract to use you, and then B, help you negotiate with that co-oping agent on the other side, and eliminates the need on the front end. I think knowing the disc on the back end helps build that relationship, right? Because where did Steve disappear?
I have no idea. Steve, come back.
Technical issues, I guess.
Right.
But anyway, for me, like understanding these principles really takes that away. And so when I'm coaching agents, one of the first things I tell them, and you can ask Alicia, I'm like, go find it, go take the test, go look up disc, go take the test, learn these categories and learn these classifications, because if you know them, it's easier to talk to your folks. I think now my first recommendation is going to be go read Never Split the Difference and learn how to negotiate, followed up by understanding their disc profile, because I think those two tools tied together and used at a high level, you'll win every time.
Absolutely. I'd agree with that.
And then we'll take over the world like Pinky and the Brain.
Well, darn, we lost Steve.
We did. I will take over as the mediator, moderator, whatever that word is. Oh, there's Steve.
Oh, there he is. Welcome back.
I thought that was a great thing you just said. That was fantastic.
We missed you for a second.
Sometimes your battery dies on your laptop, and that's what happens.
Oh no.
The laptop asks, how am I supposed to keep working if I have no battery?
And it won. You plugged it in.
There you go.
Waited for you to answer. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think we only have a couple minutes left, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to go over, I'm sorry, were we done? Were we just making fun of me for not being there? Or?
No, we actually maintained our conversation at a high level. We
Good.
no beats.
The one thing I definitely wanted to get into was the 7-38-55 rule. And I don't know if we've talked about that in any of the previous books that we've done, but it came up in that sales training that we were in this week. It comes up all the time. 7-38-55, 100%, all day long. I'll give you a perfect example, just so that we know what we're talking about. The studies that they've done have shown that all our communication, 7% of what we communicate is words, 38% of what we communicate is our tone, 55% is body language, okay? Which is why sometimes at the end of the day when you go into a listing appointment, I do what my old team leader used to do. He used to just kick the door in. It looked good in a suit, and he stood up there like he owned a damn place. And he got listing after listing after listing, because that was like, I don't have to be confident if I come in and kick the door in and go get the listing signed, you know? But one of the things, I have this picture saved in my phone from Bold. A simple sentence. I didn't say Bob took that. Okay? It's a 6-word sentence. I didn't say Bob took that. If you text that to somebody, all it says is that I didn't say Bob took that. But if you're saying it, you can say it. I didn't say Bob took that. 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 5 different sentences, all the exact same words. It all depends on where you put the emphasis or whatever. So again, that's not the 7%. That's the 38%. That's the 55%. So, you know, he says in the book, he'll go fly somewhere to go meet with somebody because you've got to see how they react.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think this is something we taught a lot at KW, Laura, but I mean, how do you see that? Is that, I mean,
So for me, I think body language is everything. When I'm coaching agents and they're on the phone, I actually encourage them to put a mirror at their desk, because the other side can actually feel if you're smiling even when they can't see you. So in my opinion, if your body language means that much when there's no visual, your body language tells the whole story when there is visual. And
Right.
As a trained communicator, right, I've been very highly trained at communication skills, in addition to being someone who teaches that, right? There's the whole equation of that. You learn something, you retain X number percent, you teach it, you retain 90% of it, right? So when we're talking and we're coaching people, especially at the BSA level, because they're, they're negotiating with kids, and a lot of those kids are negotiating with have ADD, have learning disabilities, or autistic, right? The BSA takes in that kind of personality a lot of times. And I tell everybody I talk to, your body language matters, because that's what they're going to believe. Right? If you ask, like, oh my God, how can I accomplish that? Right? And you really feel sincere and you're like concerned about it, they're going to go, oh, maybe they can't. As opposed to, if you, how can I accomplish that? Right? Well, go fuck yourself is what they're gonna say on the back end. You can accomplish it by fucking yourself, because that's what you just did with that body language. And so for me, body language is 100% your number one negotiating tool. Sit back. I tell agents all the time, when you've got a jackass on the other end, let him be a jackass. Just smile and be nice to him. Because at some point, whether it's your client or another agent, you're going to cross paths again, and they're going to actually remember how you acted based on your body language. They're not going to remember how you acted or what you said based on your words. They're going to remember how you made them feel, and your body language is going to take the precedence over that.
David, before you go, real quick, how much time do you have left? Because I don't have a clock.
45 seconds.
Less than a minute.
Crap. David, give me something in 15 seconds. Go.
Snap. I mean, this was really good. Honestly, the body language is huge. I mean, you really read the body language. I prefer to be in front of people when I'm talking. Well, it's just not as easy, honestly.
Right.
Otherwise, I use the camera. I have to get into the camera.
There you
see my face.
It's Zoom.
Right.
At least a little bit of it. Cool. All right. So chapters 9 and 10 are going to wrap up the book, right?
Yeah.